Hope everyone is doing well. It's crystal class time. I just literally scarfed down some food. I'm using a new software system today, so I'm going to just double check real quick and make sure that it is sending you information. And I'm doing that because I'm going to switch camera views to show you, better demonstrate the energy sensing. So let me just check in. I also just scarfed down a Buddha bowl, so I'm, yay, there I am. Okay. So can I be seen and can I be heard? I see Dina. Hello, lady. Awesome. Okay. I'm Audrey, holistic wellness practitioner and certified crystal healer with Gemstone Well. As always, I'm so excited to be hanging out with y'all today. This is one of my very favorite classes to teach. It is my fourth class, yes, to teach today. Plus I did a live on the Gemstone Well page. Goodness, lots of things today. So I see someone saying hello, but it just says Facebook user. So there might be some of that. Hopefully we can get through that. Today we're diving into energy sensing, and we may do this in a two-part type deal, maybe even 3 parts if you guys have questions, or I'm going to give you homework today. So after you practice that, if we need to take it up a notch or back up and go over some steps again. As you pop in, make sure you say hello. Let me know you are tuning in. And if you're watching the replay, let me know that you saw it. While we're waiting for everyone to join, I'm going to do some housekeeping. Dina says you can hear and see me. Awesome. If you have questions, make sure you pop them in the comments. I will try to answer them. This time in my notes, I made little like check for questions breaks because I received some constructive feedback that the timing of me stopping to answer questions made it difficult for the replay watchers to follow along. So I've created breaks. So if I don't answer your question right away like I normally do, then I will come back at each one of those breaks, scroll up and answer your questions. Because we're using a new software platform, if for some reason I can't see your questions, just let me know. I'll come back around and check them when I get done here. I'll go back to the page and check them. Also know that there could be up to a 30-second delay, even maybe a little bit more between us because now it's going through a third party today as well. You were watching the Gem Elixir video earlier, so it's either Kathy or Patricia, I think. Also, sometimes Facebook gets tired of me and boots us off. I think Mercury went back direct today, so maybe we'll be good, but just know that I'll pop right back on. And then lastly, we are two things lastly. One, the crystal bowls, pet elixir bowls, crystal elixir bowls, whatever you want to call them, are shipped or shipping. So if you've ordered them and you've got them, put them on Instagram, put them on Facebook, tag Gemstone Well in the picture so that we can share. And then also the crystal grid kits are coming very, very soon. We're trying really hard to get those out in time for the holidays. And you, of course, y'all get first dibs. All right. Let me check one more time. Okay. It looks like we're all connected. So we're going to give this a go. And if we have to bail to regular Facebook, we will. Okay. So I want you guys to tell me in the comments who senses energy already and how you do that. Okay. I'm going to take a drink because I've been talking for a long time today. Also exciting news, I have the whole office to myself. It's getting close to holiday week, so nobody else is here today. So I don't have to use the mic, so I can talk loud instead of having to talk with the mic, so there will be no mic banging. All right, let's see. Awesome. Okay, so you guys let me know who senses energy and how, and we'll come back to that. Let's first talk about what it means to sense energy, or I like to refer to it as being energy sensitive. And I don't mean necessarily like empath sensitive, but that is also a form of being energy sensitive. My definition is very, very simple. It's a person who is centered in a tranquil place of wisdom within, and then from that place can detect or sense through whatever sense is strongest, and that can be different for everyone, but can sense or connect to and move her own or others' energies towards harmony, balance, and ultimately wellness, okay? If you haven't figured it out yet, there's going to be a fair amount of woo in this class. I don't want to get too science heavy and weigh you down in the physics. The book Vibrational Medicine by Dr. Richard Gerber is a really good place to read to connect the woo and the science, especially for things like energy sensing. People sense energy in lots and lots of different ways. And there are tools that you can do to use to do this. There are traditional, or what you might call conventional tools, like an EKG. So when they put all the pads on you and they monitor the energy of the heart. An EEG, so where they're checking to see how the energy comes from the brain and out the extremities generally, or just around the brain itself. MRI, that's a source, a type of energy sensing. CT scan, Apple Watch or your Fitbit, that is a type of energy sensing, right? And there are lots of other like non-conventional things, and we're going to talk more about the non-conventional things today. Things like tuning forks, dowsing rods, which we've worked with dowsing rods before. Pendulums, right? Pendulums is one. And I only brought 2 pendulums to show you today because we could get lost in the world of pendulum types. And then there are ways to sense energy that require no tools outside your body. And that's the very best kind to use, in my opinion. But when teaching beginners, I find it often helps to start with something tangible in your hands to learn, to see, to touch, to use. And when sensing energy without tools, you can use any of your 5 senses or your 6th, 7th, or 8th sense, or many, many senses beyond the 5th sense. Let's see. I've met people that can smell energy, that can see energy, that can touch energy, like feel it with their hands, that can taste it, that can hear it, all sorts of different things, as well as lots of intuitive ways that energy lands on people. When I was in my energy medicine training, there was the intuitive factor that we talked about as well, the intuitive sensing of energy. And I believe there's an intuitive factor involved in all of it. But in energy medicine, we referred to it as our wow, and W-O-W, wise one within. So our wow. And you can call your wow anything, right? It can be God, divine, source, spirit, universe, big bang, spark, divine light. There are so many different names for it. Labels aren't super important to me, but if they are to you, then choose a label that works for your higher power. Okay? All right, so before practicing sensing energy, before trying it, I want you to know a couple things. One, sensing energy is available to you because you are a human and it is in your DNA. It's ancient wisdom. It's available for all of us. And that doesn't matter whether you're new on the journey or experienced. I want you to be open to the possibility. Even if you haven't had success with it before, we're going to work through some steps that with practice will help you develop that ability or be able to connect to that ability that exists. But somewhere in there, even if you haven't had success with it before, you do have the ability. You just haven't uncovered the right method to access it yet. I think it was Henry Ford who said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are correct. Either way, you are right. And I don't think that's the exact quote, but that's kind of what he said. And then lastly, before we jump in, a quick disclaimer. There are so many different flavors of energy sensing. And then inside of each of those flavors, there are thousands of different nuances. As you practice, you're going to develop your own flair, your own style. There's no right or wrong way. Your style will evolve to suit your own energetic and biologic profile, sensory type, and just like anything else, y'all, we are all unique, okay? So there's no right or wrong to do it. So I might teach you a way today that's different than a way that you've learned before, or another person might teach you a way that is different than what I taught you, and that's all okay. None of them are right or wrong. We teach what we know and what we know works for us or what we've seen work for others, okay? I'm gonna get a quick drink and check for questions. Let's see. Dina says she doesn't sense it. And again, y'all, I like to use your names, but it's just showing me Facebook user on this. So I'll have to figure out why that is next time. But somebody else says, I just sense vibes, like when you get a good vibe for someone or a bad vibe. Yes, that is sensing energy, so that's awesome. All right. So my first energy sensing experience that I was aware of, that I was conscious of, was through, well, the very first one was through distance Reiki. I think I've told the story before. I had knee pain, had never really delved into the healing arts. I had an infant. It was over 10 years ago. Put the infant down for nap, got on the phone with a friend who had just become a Reiki master, and I didn't even know what Reiki was. She was going to do Reiki on me, and all I had to do was lay on the couch, and she would fix my knee pain. Although I hadn't told her that I had had knee pain at the time. After she was done with her session, I sat up, put the phone back to my ear, and this was a cordless phone, so it was a while ago, with the phone back up to my ear. And she told me that she felt blockage in my left knee and that she removed that blockage. I didn't have left knee pain after that again. So my second experience actually sensing energy was with a pendulum, and we're going to talk about that today. I think that's a really good way, especially if you don't have any experience or haven't developed a way to do it yourself. That's a really good way to use a tool to develop the confidence to not need a tool, right? To be able to just sense it. And then after that, I did Reiki training, and that's when I began to feel energy in my hands much more deeply, or recognize that I felt energy in my hands. So if you have a Reiki practitioner near you that teaches, then it's a really good, I do teach it online sometimes, but it's better to do it in person. So that's definitely something I would encourage. Usually it's really inexpensive, like $60, $100, or at least that's what it is around here. And then after that, I did Eden energy medicine and became an energy medicine practitioner. And that just took it kind of to a whole nother level. So let's get to the how. The very first step in being an energy sensitive is to relax. And that seems like, you know, okay, anybody can do that. Okay, Jessica Nelson is one Facebook user and Stacy is the other Facebook user. Okay, it all says Facebook user, and there's not even a picture. So y'all might have to say like Jessica and then that, so that I can call you by your names. Okay, the very first step to being energy sensitive is to just relax. And you do this by letting go. And if you don't think you have anything to let go of, then breathe. Breathe in and let it go. And sometimes you'll find something to let go in that breath. Other times, just the fact that you're forcing that energy out of your body via breath is enough, right? And so I do that. And I can feel a little tickle in my chest. So there's something there, but we're going to move on despite that. So the second part of that is to tune into your wow, your wise one within. And it could be just as simple as just recognizing that there is your wise one within, that is available to you. And then the third part of relaxing is adopting an attitude of confident curiosity, right? You want to be confident in your energy sensing abilities, but you don't want to be so confident that you know the answer, even though if you look at like the ethereal planes, you totally know the answer, but that's not what you're looking for there. What you're looking for is confident in your ability to sense the energy to get to the answer, and also curiosity about the answer itself. And then you apply one of the methods that we're going to learn today: the pendulum, the hand technique, or the body technique, where that's 4 ways. The body technique, where your body becomes the pendulum, okay? So pendies. Does anyone have a pendy? I'm going to call it pendy for short, because if I say pendulum a whole bunch of times in this hour, it will be like shmish, shmish, shmish by the time I get done. So a pendulum is a super cool little gadget. This one is a very simple pendulum. It's the kind that you'll find most places. It has a stone at the bottom, some sort of chain, and then a little bead generally at the top to hold on to. That's a pretty plain one. They also can get quite fancy. This one was a gift, right? And so it's got some moon phases at the top. It's got kind of a long chain for pendulum work. I use this one in crystal sessions because I can hold it above the person's body, but for the kind of energy sensing we're gonna do today, this one would be a bit long. So if I use it to demonstrate, I'll hold it by one of the beads, okay? Now, you could buy a pendulum, sure. I mean, this one might even have been a free gift in something. The first pendulum I had looked very similar to this, and I think it was $15, and it had a smoky quartz on the bottom of it, and it broke, so I don't have that one any longer. I think I've told y'all, I have loads and loads and loads of pendulums. Like, I love them, they're everywhere. Now, if you don't have a pendulum, don't worry, you can totally make one. You just need something heavy and a piece of string. If I don't have one handy and I really happen to need one, I'll use my car keys, okay? Car keys work great. So you can literally use anything. Necklaces also work. So when I'm in a restaurant and I'm not sure what I want to get, or if I should get something, or if like all the things are going to be contaminated with things I'm sensitive to, then I'll use a necklace because I can kind of do it really nonchalantly. right? Without people looking at you going, why does that woman have a pendulum out at the table, if they even know what it is, right? So you can get one anywhere. A lot of times people think that the information comes from the pendie itself, okay? And that's not the case at all. You can literally use anything as a pendie. Your card keys don't have any inherent ancient knowledge in them. The power, the information, the sensing comes from you. It comes from your wise one within, from your divine connection, your higher power, whatever that is for you. So think of it like your car, right? You put your keys in your ignition and you start your car, right? You tell it to start by turning the key, and you don't have to know anything about like I'm trying to think of things about cars. You don't have to know like internal combustion or horsepower or any of those things, right? Internal lubrication of the gears and joints. You don't have to know any of that to get the car to from point A to point B. You just have to know how to drive it. It's the same thing with using a pendulum to access your wise one within, to access your inner information. You don't have to know, it doesn't have to be anything special. You don't have to know anything intricate about the physics behind it or how the vibration comes from your energy center down your hand into the pendulum itself. You don't have to know any of that stuff. You just gotta know how to drive one, okay? So let's talk about how to hold a pendulum so that you can learn how to drive one properly. Okay, and for this, I'm gonna try to switch cameras, and I'll also look at the comments while we're doing this. Stacy says, I use mine regularly. I bought one, it would not work for me, but the one I use now is actually a necklace. And sometimes that's the case. Sometimes you have to work with a pendulum over and over and over again to get it to work. And sometimes it might not work for you. I do have some tricks if you have pendies that don't work for you. And we can, if there's time, we'll talk about that at the end. If not, I'll post it in the group. Okay, so let me see how to change this camera. There's two cameras. There's one camera. Okay, yay, I made a camera. What are we looking at here? Keys and some crystals, so what you're seeing the top of? Okay, so the way you hold a pendulum is you want to put your elbow on something. So you want your elbow to be on the surface. And then you want to, I might have to shorten it, but you want to hold it by the ball. I'm putting it in the wrong camera, right? Between your first finger and your thumb. And then you kind of want to have your wrist bent, right? So you don't want to be holding it out super straight, wrist bent. And that allows the pendulum to move freely, okay? It allows the pendulum to move freely, but you know, because your elbow is planted, that you're not moving, it's not the movement of your arm is what I'm trying to say, that is moving the pendulum. Now, when you get a pendulum, you want to calibrate it to you. So the way you do that is you say, show me a clear sign for yes. Now, if you can see, it might be difficult to perceive with this one. I'll switch to a bigger one here in just a second. But the pendulum, my clear sign for yes is north-south or back and forth, right? And then you can ask it to stop. And then you can say, show me a clear sign for no. So now you can see that it's moving left to right. That's my sign for no. Now I'm going to start talking and using my hand, so it might move in a bunch of different directions. You can also tell it to show me a clear sign for needs more information. So you can see that it's spinning in a circle. That is my sign for needs more information. Okay, so think of all the things that you can sense, that you can get to with just those 3 questions. Now, language is important here. So when you're using a pendulum, let's see, I think that one shows up better. When you're using a pendulum and you're asking it questions, you want to use particular language, right? So I like to tell people to start with all things considered. And the reason why I like to use all things considered is because it encompasses everything. It encompasses asking for the divine perspective, if you will, rather than just what you want, what your brain wants, or what your emotions are pulling you to at this time, right? And then the second part of that is using the word optimal. Now you want to use the word optimal anywhere your brain wants to put in. Is it, so if you would normally ask, is it right for me to, I don't know, is it right for me to go to Starbucks, right? You'll get it a response, but you've placed all sorts of judgments on that, right? So if you instead ask, all things considered, is it optimal for me to go to Starbucks? And then wait for the Pindy's response. I talk with my hands, so I'm making it shake, but it's going left and right. Okay, I don't need any more caffeine today. That's a no. Okay, so, and I'm just using this, obviously we want to sense energy more important than, you know, are we going to Starbucks, right? But you want to make sure that your language doesn't have any judgment attached to it. So sometimes we use pendulums to truth test. And so when we're truth testing, this is especially important. Another thing you can say is, all things considered, is it true and accurate, right? All things considered, is it true and accurate that I should go to Starbucks? And actually I said should, and you want to say, you want to take shoulds out of the equation as well. Okay. So that's how you calibrate it and how you ask a question using the pendulum. Let's see, I'm checking for questions. No new questions, so we're going to keep going. Okay. Now, the next part of using a pendulum, and again, all these steps are going to build on each other. And so it's not a situation where, you know, this is the end all be all for energy sensing, right? We want to make sure that we have a good foundation in place. So the second part of that is to energy test yourself or energy sense on yourself if something is medicinal, beneficial, neutral, detrimental, or toxic, okay? And a good way to do this while you're working with your pendulum is to take your hand and touch each finger and give it a label. So I'm going to give medicinal, beneficial, neutral, detrimental. Thumb is going to be toxic, okay? And then place your hand flat on the table. Let me get all the extra chain out of the way here. All right, all things considered, let me get a little more chain. All things considered, is it optimal for me to go to Starbucks? It's still giving me no, right? So show me if Starbucks is optimal for me. So it's pointing towards the first finger. And if you remember, the first finger was detrimental. Okay, so I can make a decision based on that if I want to have the Starbucks, okay? Now, if you take this to the next level in your energy sensing, and you remember what we learned about the chakra system, you can also use the pendulum to check your own chakras, right? So if I put my left hand, my energy sensing hand over my heart chakra, and you don't have to say it out loud, I'm just energetically, show me the heart chakra, right? So I'm taking that vibration from my heart chakra through my left hand, out my right hand, and now I'm moving. And so it's showing me a tiny little circle. Now, likely it'll get bigger as I sit here and continue to sense the chakra. As soon as you put energy into anything, it grows and changes. But realistically, that's kind of a small circle for my heart chakra. So now if I were going to use a crystal to focus on that, I'd be getting out my rose quartz, I'd be getting out my green aventurine. What I'll probably do is during my meditation this afternoon, I'll probably focus on the heart chakra, right? So you can do that with any of the chakras. You can do that with the throat chakra. Now this one's probably wide open and super big. So it's starting to spin faster and a little bit bigger. And my throat chakra might even be over open, like too open, because I've been talking and teaching all day, right? Just as a sidebar, if you have kids, I like to put my left hand, if this wooden cutting board was a child, I like to put my left hand on the child and then tell the child to spin the pendulum. And their energy, just tell them to think about spinning the pendulum, their energy goes through them to you, and you don't have to have your hand on any particular part. So I'll put it on their arm or their leg or hold hands, and then have them spin the pendulum. Make sure your elbow is firmly planted, right? So that you're not doing the spinning, and then ask them to stop it. And then ask them to spin it the other direction. And this is a really cool exercise. It's a cool exercise to do with anybody. So you can totally do that exercise yourself, but it's a really cool exercise to do with kids to help them connect with and demonstrate that they have that intuitive ability, that their thoughts become things and manifest and all that good stuff. I'm going to check for questions before we move on. There's no questions, so goodness, I hope we are still connected. I hope y'all aren't lost. All right, let me switch back to the other camera. The camera for now. There's me. Okay, so I'm gonna switch back to this camera because the next option is when you don't have any tools, you don't have car keys, an earring, a necklace, anything. And it's the next step really of stepping away from the tools, stepping away from the training wheels and starting to develop that intuitive energy sensing sense in yourself, okay? And that's using your body as the pendulum. So this is actually taught. You can get a degree in kinesiology, and part of kinesiology is this energy testing or muscle testing. It's often very closely related. So to use yourself as the pendulum, so a little background, your energy, your body is naturally attracted to things that are beneficial for it. And so if you've ever had any aromatherapy training, then you know that when you drop oils out of a bottle, if the drops come out really, really fast, that means the oil is something your body really, really needs. Now, there are some exceptions to that rule. Cedar wood, of course, is a very thick, viscous material, and it comes out slow no matter what. But if you happen to have a person that you turn that cedar wood bottle upside down, or you don't have to shake it, or you didn't have to put it in your armpit to warm it up first, then or in your pocket. If I was at home, I put it in my armpit because it's faster, but you can put it in your pocket. Then you know that that person, their energetic field really, really needed, their body needed that essential oil, right? Same thing with anything else that you do. You're going to calibrate yourself, not so that you're telling your body what to say, but so that you know what your signs are. So the way you do it, I'm going to stay seated, but the way you do it is to plant your feet about shoulders width apart. Inhale. Exhale to get yourself nice and grounded, and then say, show me a clear sign for yes. I'm going to exaggerate this, but my sign for yes is forward, okay? My whole body will lean forward. Sometimes I have to remind myself, like, relax your glutes, relax your quads, relax your thighs, you know, because I'll feel myself resisting to whatever that is. Now, then you ask, show me a clear sign for no. And then my clear sign for no is back. Some people's are different. Sometimes right is no and left is yes and vice versa. And then for me, a clear sign for needs more information is kind of this little whoop. I kind of like lean to one side and back, okay? How the heck could that be useful? Same thing as with your pendulum when you are checking things. So I'll use this for crystals. I'll use it for oils. I do this with my supplements once a week. I do this with foods. So if I'm really, really present and I'm like, dang, you know, I would really like to eat the rest of that chocolate bar that I have in the top shelf of the fridge, then I will check in. I'll hold the chocolate bar in my hand or think of the chocolate bar and just check in. Yes, it's optimal. No, it's not. I've been doing it long enough that I can sit still and do it. And it feels like, I just stood there, it feels like my internal organs shift forward or my internal organs shift back. And so I can get a really clear sign for yes or no. I don't always listen to it. Like we might say no, and I might have the chocolate bar anyways, but I have the ability to tune into that wise one within and sense that energy. And so you can use yourself as a pendulum for that as well. And again, you can do that with supplements. If you're unsure what crystal to put in your crystal elixir, you can hold the crystal. I like to hold things to my heart chakra. Most of the meridians in the body run through this upper half of the chest. So I'll hold it here, generally in my left hand, and lean forward or lean back. So that's kind of like the next level of sensing energy with your body. I'm going to check again for questions. Still here. Yay. Good deal. So are y'all lost? Are we confused? Is it too much? If it's too much, I'm going to give y'all homework at the end. And if it's too much, we can revisit aspects of it next time. So I'm going to check in with y'all next Thursday. Ooh, next Thursday is Thanksgiving. I'm going to check in with y'all next Tuesday or Wednesday, or even Friday maybe, and see if you guys are grasping it, all that sort of thing, getting your homework done. There will be a grade. No, I'm kidding. There won't be a grade. But I do want you to do your homework, and then we can determine if we need to go deeper, if we need to back up and explain a little better and troubleshoot it. Finally made it. We'll have to check back later. All right. No worries. Again, I'm seeing Facebook user for many of these. So if I'm not using your name, and next week we won't have to use the double camera setup. So I'll go back to doing it on Facebook. I just thought it'd be easier if you could see the pendulum better. So far we have talked about how to use the pendulum. We've talked about how to use like multiple choice, right? How to use the pendulum multiple choice, how to use the pendulum to sense your own chakras. If you were going to do that on someone else, you would just hold the pendulum above the chakra. A tight spin is a closed chakra. A big spin is an open chakra. And somewhere in the middle, or a wonky, you know, it's an unbalanced chakra. It's very visually interpreted. And then the last one we're going to talk about is sensing with your hands. Now, I feel like my hands, I wasn't conscious of my hands sensing energy until after my Reiki training. But I don't know if it was just the Reiki that did that. I know lots of people who can sense energy with their hands, and I'm going to give you some ways to do that. I know lots of people who have done it that did not do Reiki training. I just did Reiki first and then learned the other methods. So for me, I had already learned how to sense energy with my hands. So for about 90% of the people, all those people whose chakras spin clockwise, the left hand is going to be your receiving hand. It's the negative charge of your body, and not negative like bad, negative like the current comes in. I think of like a negative side of a circuit, right? And then the right hand is the positive side, or the sending energy side. So you're like a big human battery. You have polar ends at the top and bottom and left and right. So for most people, left hand. If you are somebody whose chakras spin the other way, it could very well be that your right hand is your energy sensing hand. So play with it. If your left hand doesn't work, switch to your right hand and vice versa. Actually, this isn't the last one. This is the second to last one. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways you can do it. I feel energy as warmth, as kind of like touching a cloud, although I've never touched a cloud, but if you can imagine what touching a cloud feels like, you can put your hand through it, but you can feel it as soon as you touch it. So if I'm feeling for energy on myself, I feel the cloud, if you will, as I go along, and then I feel energy breaks as almost as if somebody blew cold air on my hand. It's not quite that literal, but that's kind of the sensation. Everybody feels it a little bit differently. And then energy blockages feel heavy. Like it feels like I don't want to move my hand past it, okay? So it'll feel a little bit different to everyone, but that's a good way to start. So what I do, so it's on this side. You see the shelf of oils behind me? Sometimes I'll just run my hand. I have a double shelf like that at my home office. I'll just run my hand over the shelf. I'm not really paying attention to what oils they are. They're not in any order as far as like healing qualities. They're in oil order of their labels. I like to Roy G. Biv everything, so they go from red to violet. And so I'll just run my hand over them, and then I notice where there is a different sensation. For me, again, it's the cooling sensation, but the sensation changes. And that's the oil that I'll pick to work with that day if I don't have something else in mind. Or maybe that's the one that I'll use in meditation. And so that's a good way to practice doing that. You can also practice sensing the energy on someone else. So if you've got a partner or a kid that's willing to be game, have them lay flat on their backs, relaxed, bare feet, and then you're going to put your left hand on the bottom of their right foot and your right hand on the bottom of their left foot. And then you're just going to close your eyes and breathe for just a moment. And you will feel that energy change. I call it a connection. You'll feel it change or shift. And then once that happens, then you can release their feet, take your sensing hand, and just slowly move it across the top of their body and see where you feel the energetic gaps. Now, you guys should have enough knowledge going through the classes that we've had, that then you can then apply a crystal remedy to that if you'd like. If you don't have the crystal to do that, then you can use your hands. You just hold your hand over the area and then wait for the energy to shift again and then keep going, okay? Have I lost y'all? Is this too woo? There are energetic centers in our hands, the nadis, right, that we have talked about before, and we'll do that exercise again here in a minute. But they are discernible on heat graphs and other energy sensing conventional medical equipment. And that's what is sensing the change, the shift in energy. Sometimes I feel tingling. I'm reading this from a comment. Again, it says Facebook user, sorry. Sometimes I get a tingling in my hands and arms when I'm doing Reiki, when doing energy work or Reiki. I feel that sensation when checking to see if I'm supposed to do or use something. Awesome. So tune into that. That is sensing energy for sure. Tune into that. And you can do the same thing with your crystal collection. I'll do that too. I'll either, let me set this up here. I'll either run my hand over crystals, or if I have a bunch of crystals out on my desk and I'm just like, which one should I be using today? Then let me see if I can, look. Then I'll, just say, swing towards the one that I'm supposed to use, right? And so it'll swing a little bit towards each one. And then I wasn't watching because I was talking to you to which one I needed the most. Rose quartz and amethyst, which is interesting because I picked a rose quartz ring to wear today. So sometimes I'll just do that. And it's not that I necessarily need the help and advice on, what crystal to choose, but it helps me stay connected. It helps me stay connected with that wow that allows me to sense energy in other areas, energy of animals that I work with, energy of other people that I work with, energy of my kids, my family, all of those things. Now, I said that there were other ways to sense energy, and there are. Well, one, let's do the energy exercise, right? And we've done this before. So we've been talking about energy and hand energy so much, so you might not even need to create any energy in order to feel it. But so I can put my hands together and I start feeling energy about here. And if I put my concentration, my intention on it, I can move them out and feel energy and feel it grow and grow and grow, right? So if you do that and you can't feel it, rub your hands together and create a little energy, get those atoms, those molecules dancing a little bit. And then you'll definitely feel it. And you can just play. And sometimes you might think of it as breathing into it and getting it bigger, and then move your hands out and then push them in and see where the edges are. Okay, that's sensing energy as well, and also a good exercise for you to do in order to develop that skill a little bit better. Okay, so there's lots of different traditional sense ways to see energy. I know people that see energy. It takes a lot of work for me to see energy, but I know people who can't unsee it, if that makes sense. Like they look at you and they can see the blockages. They can see where the energy flows and stops, right? And there are people who can see the energy from crystals as well. So I'm going to show you how to develop that skill a little bit. So for seeing energy on people or on hands, or the way you practice that, the way you begin to develop that skill is to have some sort of dark background. Some teachers teach this to take a picture frame and then throw a black t-shirt over it. That totally works. If you have a dark wall in your house, that'll work. If you have a dark shirt on a hanger, dark towel, any of those things will work. You just need some kind of dark background, okay? And then you put your hand against the dark background and play with the distance of your hand and your face, okay? And then you know how you look at something, but you're kind of looking past it, but you still see it, okay? So you're doing that on that dark background with your hand. And usually what people notice first are wisps between the fingers, right? Little energy wisps between the fingers. And then usually the second thing that is noticed are little energy wisps off the tips of the fingers. Now, when you start, you need the black background, right? And it kind of needs to be low light. Like I have a camera light in my eyes. And so it's not very strong. But when I see it, it looks like like heat waves coming off of hot asphalt. I don't see it in color. Some people do. And so if you do, let us know. That's super cool. I just don't. I want to, but I don't. But I can see it between my fingers and then at the tips of my fingers, right? And so you can play with that on that dark background. And then the second step is to either change the background so that you can see it more frequently. And again, it's a skill you have to practice. This isn't going to happen in one day's time generally. And if it does happen in one day's time, you've been hiding your gifts. But you can see the energy, right? And then you can start playing with larger areas of the body and seeing how the energy flows there. You can start playing with other people to see where the energy flows. If you have somebody that's willing to be your guinea pig, right? You can play with it with animals. And it actually, they developed photography that can see the energetic pattern both around and in, and I don't mean like we've had CTs and MRIs and x-rays for a long time, but they have photography where they've taken people who have had amputations and they can still see the energetic pattern, the energetic print of where that limb was. There's a bunch of research information in that book, Vibrational Medicine by Richard Gerber, that has that, talks about that information. Now, just if you, whether you can or can't see the energy on your hands, but especially if you can't, then I encourage you to get a clear quartz crystal. This is going to be something where the bigger, the better. And I think this one's bigger. It's just not as pretty. Y'all know I like the ugly ones, right? So you're going to take a clear quartz crystal and you're going to do the same thing as you did with your hand, only you're going to do it with the dark background, the black background, and the crystal. Now, crystals, especially quartz, have piezoelectric energy, right? So if we were in a pitch black room and I banged these together, it would make a spark because they have that kind of energy. And I encourage you to do it in a closet. If you have two big pieces that you don't care about, take them in a dark closet and bang them together and it'll spark, okay? So you're going to take that. It's going to have the energy coming from your hand. And then we know that quartz magnifies, increases, perfects energy. It's going to make it easier for you to see. So you hold it and you do the same thing. You look at it, but you're kind of looking past it, but it's still in your field of vision. And then you can see the energy coming off of the quartz. So then you can play with two crystals together. Then you can play with the crystal to your hand, right? And then maybe you lose the crystal and you just go to seeing the energy just around your hands. All right, let's see what questions we have. That's a lot of information, I know. I can also usually hear a sound like the ocean in my head when I'm doing energy work or touching base on something. It has happened in my life. Also when I did Reiki training in '87, I gave a name to something I've always done. Very blessed. This is Valerie. Awesome, Valerie. I love that. So I don't know if any of you guys ever get like ringing in your ears. That there are schools of thought that believe that ringing in your ears, and not chronic ringing like tinnitus, but sometimes, but ringing in your ears is actually your clairaudio. So your intuitive sense, your energy sensing through your ears. And what you can do is if it comes to you in ear ringing is say, out loud or in your head, I can't understand that. Can you change to a tone or frequency or whatever your word is that I can understand? And it will either stop completely and you'll receive the message in a different way, or the tone will change and you'll understand what that message is trying to deliver. So if you're somebody who has ringing in your ears, it's very possible that you are clairaudient, and that could be your method of energy sensing. Often we have an energy sensing way that is easiest for us, that is almost like second nature, and it takes work to develop the other aspects, right? Or we have one that we default to, so it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. When you're working with other people, if any of you are, I know somebody is a Reiki practitioner also, you know, if you're working with other people, you might try energy testing, and we can talk about some of that. It's hard to demonstrate without me having somebody to demonstrate on. And I don't know that I could get anybody to sit in here with me for an hour to do it. So let's talk about homework. Okay, you can probably guess what it is, but I want you to pick one and practice it all week, right? So you can try all of them today and then settle on one. Maybe use your pendulum to check. Maybe use your intuition to see which one you're guided to. Practice it at least one time a day, every day until, I was going to do Thursday, but it's Turkey Day. So we'll do until Tuesday or Wednesday. I'll set a post up to check in with everyone and see how it's going. And then we'll decide from there if we need to do more energy sensing information in the next class, or if we want to do something else. So if you guys have any questions, put them in there. I get a tone in the ear. Sometimes it's very loud, doesn't last long, has annoyed me. Now I have a different perspective. Amazing. So try it. Next time it comes, just say, I'm sorry, I can't understand that. If you're in a crowded place, maybe not say it out loud because people will be like, what? But you can just intuitively think, I'm sorry, I can't understand that. Could you please change the tone, or please give me the message in a different way, and see what happens when that happens. See what shifts for you when that happens. So do your homework, pick a method. Let's check in next week. Hopefully by then I'll have information on these grid kits. I know I recorded the instructional video on how to do them last week, so they should be up any day now. And then, yeah, so you guys make sure and tag me in any questions that you have as you're trying these methods, as you're practicing these methods, if something comes up for you, if you're having trouble, you know, with any aspect of it, even if it's just wrapping your mind around it and you're like, okay, Audrey, we need some of the science. That was just a little bit too woo for us. Then just let me know and I'd be happy to do that. If we don't have any more questions, I am going to sign off. We're just over 45 minutes. I'll give it just another second in case there's a question, because we could have a longer lag. Get a quick drink. I switched out my elixir. I was all about the carnelian. I don't know if y'all can see that, but it's got a piece of azurite in there. Can y'all see that sparkly? There, that's a better picture. Of course, it's not by the edge. It's a very pretty sparkly stone, kind of rare. See how it sparkles? It's like my two favorite colors, and it sparkles. I don't know. I'm just super drawn to it this week, but it's azurite, and it's for intuition. Go figure. All right, so I don't see any more questions popping up, so I will wish you all a very happy holiday week next week, and I'll be in the Facebook group all week long this week and next week. So if you have questions, tag me, and then I'll check in with you on your homework. Oh, question. Could I explain a little more about how I use the pendulum with children? I wasn't sure if you should be touching them or what the actual process was. Always ask the kiddos permission first. But what I do is I take my left hand and I put it on my kiddo, right? And I either hold their hand, I might put my hand on a knee or on a shoulder or on their forearm. So my left hand is touching the kid. My right hand is holding the pendulum with my elbow on something, which is hard to do because of the camera angle. And then I ask the kiddo to spin the pendulum. Could you spin the pendulum? You know, make the pendulum move is sometimes what I'll say. Or turn the pendulum clockwise or counterclockwise, depending on their age. Or can you make the pendulum go in a circle? And then they'll start moving in a circle. The energy goes from their mind through your receiving hand to your pendulum, right? And then you can ask them to make it spin bigger or spin slower or spin faster. I like to ask them to make it stop and go back the other direction. And it's just an exercise I've done with my littles since they were probably 2. And it's a really good thing, especially when you're working on negative thoughts with them, or like, you know, having that deep ingrained knowledge and feeling that thoughts become reality. Thoughts become things. A collection of thoughts is a belief, and your beliefs form your reality. So, you know, anytime that they are, you know, I can't do this. I can't, especially I have a 9-year-old that is a gymnast, right? And so anytime there's a new skill, it can be frustrating if she can't get it. I just can't connect my back handspring and my back tuck. I can't do it. And I'll say, well, can you see yourself doing it in your mind? And she'll sit there and they work on that sports psychology stuff a lot with them on the gym teams. She'll sit there and she'll be like, yes, I can see myself do it. And then I'll remind her, well, you know how it's the same thing. You know how like you make the pendulum spin and you make it stop? It's the same thing. You can connect that. If you can do it, if you can see it in your mind, you can make that reality, right? And it's just a really cool way. It almost gives me chills. I wish somebody had done that for me when I was little, because I was in my mid to late 20s before I came back to all this stuff, right? And so, you know, it's the whole knowing better, doing better type thing, I hope. I'm not a parenting expert, so, but that's what I do with my kids. And then when I'm invited to speak to a group of kids, then we'll often do that exercise as well, so that they can all tune in to that wise one within, right? Their divine connection, and recognize that they have the power to change their reality, even though they're children and even though they're in this small package and they haven't, you know, grown up yet. So hopefully that isn't too deep. Hopefully that answered your question. And I'll see if one of my girls would be willing to be to demonstrate, if we can set that up sometime over the holiday break. Now they're both old enough. They have their own pindies. I have an 11-year-old and my 8-year-old just turned 9. They have their own pindies and they use it. And it's also a good, once they recognize that the pendulum can access what's true and accurate, I may or may not have used it a few times, like, okay, is it true and accurate that Katie hit Lily, you know, or that Lily hit Katie? And for little things like that. And if the pendy doesn't give you a direct answer, it'll make one of those kiddos spit a direct answer out real quick to tell you the truth of what actually happened to whatever, who knocked the TV off the shelf, or whatever the case might be. For us, it was who stepped on the iPad, or who left the iPad out to be stepped on. I can't remember which. So, all right. So hopefully that answers questions. Again, I'm always here for questions. I love to answer them. And if there's something that wasn't clear to you, because this was a lot of information, it was a lot of heavy, you know, detailed information, a lot of process, then let me know and we'll work through it. I hope y'all have a great turkey week. Happy holidays. See y'all again December. The first week of December will be our first crystal class. I think it's like the 4th or 5th. Thank you. I want to try that with 10-year-old grandson having behavioral issues right now. Yeah, absolutely, Stacy. Go for it. Show him where that power, that wise power, comes from within. And I've seen it work really well with quiet kids, as well as my 11-year-old is very quiet, reserved, very much a rule follower. And that ability, that knowledge affects her differently than my 9-year-old, who's kind of the wild one. She doesn't have behavior problems necessarily, but very sassy and overconfident sometimes. So, all right. Thank you all so much. Love hanging out with y'all. Be well.